It started as a quiet summer night in South Carolina. The kind of night where nothing feels out of place. Until it does. On June 7, 2021, at a rural hunting estate known as Moselle, two members of one of the most powerful legal families in the state were found brutally murdered. Maggie Murdaugh and her son Paul were discovered near the dog kennels, both shot multiple times. No signs of forced entry. No clear suspects. Just silence. And a storm of questions. But what made this case different, what made it chilling, wasn't just the violence. It was the name. Murdaugh. A name tied to generations of influence, wealth, and control over the local justice system. And now, that same name was at the center of a mystery that would unravel secrets darker than anyone expected. This isn't just a murder story. It's a story about power, deception, and the terrifying possibility that the truth was hidden in plain sight. To understand what happened that night, you have to understand the family. For nearly a century, the Murdaugh family dominated the legal system in South Carolina's Lowcountry. 3 generations served as solicitors, essentially controlling prosecutions across multiple counties. Their influence extended into law enforcement, the courts, and beyond. At the center of it all was Alex Murdaugh. A prominent attorney, known for his connections and reputation. To outsiders, the Murdaughs looked like a picture-perfect Southern dynasty. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. And one of those cracks had a name, Paul Murdaugh. Paul had been involved in a fatal boating accident in 2019 that killed 19-year-old Mallory Beach. The case drew intense public scrutiny. Allegations of intoxication, privilege, and attempts to manipulate the investigation quickly followed. The Murdaugh name, once untouchable, was suddenly under pressure. By June 2021, Paul was awaiting trial. Then, just days before a crucial hearing in the boating case, he and his mother were dead. Shot at close range. The timing wasn't just suspicious, it was explosive. When Alex Murdaugh called 911 that night, his voice was frantic. He claimed he had returned home to find his wife and son already dead. He said he had been visiting his father, who was terminally ill. At first, he appeared to be a grieving husband and father. A victim of unimaginable tragedy. But investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies. There were no signs of forced entry at Moselle. No evidence of a break-in. Whoever committed the murders likely knew the property. Or the victims. Then came the forensic details. Paul had been shot twice with a shotgun. Maggie had been shot multiple times with a rifle, including a final shot while she was on the ground. The brutality suggested something personal. Something deliberate. And then there was the timeline. Cell phone data began painting a different picture. Movements didn't align perfectly with Alex's statements. Key moments raised red flags. The case was no longer just about finding a killer. It was about questioning everything. And here's where things take an even darker turn. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a web of financial crimes tied to Alex Murdaugh. Millions of dollars allegedly misappropriated. Clients betrayed. Funds stolen. The image of a respected lawyer began to collapse. Then, in a bizarre twist, Alex himself became the victim of a roadside shooting just months after the murders. He claimed he was ambushed while changing a tire. But that story didn't hold up either. Authorities later revealed that the shooting had been staged. An alleged suicide-for-hire plot gone wrong. The motive? A life insurance payout for his surviving son, Buster. At this point, the narrative had completely shifted. This wasn't just a grieving family man caught in tragedy. This was someone capable of deception on a massive scale. And naturally, attention turned back to the murders. If you're following this case so far, make sure to hit subscribe and stay with Shadow Files, because what comes next only gets more disturbing. Investigators uncovered a crucial piece of evidence from Paul's phone. A video recorded just minutes before the murders. In it, voices could be heard in the background. One of those voices, prosecutors later argued, belonged to Alex Murdaugh. This directly contradicted his earlier statements that he had not been at the kennels that night. Suddenly, the timeline shifted again. He wasn't just nearby. He was there. In 2022, Alex Murdaugh was formally charged with the murders of his wife and son. The trial that followed captured national attention. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence, it was about unraveling a lifetime of secrets. During the trial, prosecutors painted a clear picture: Alex was under immense pressure. Financial crimes were about to be exposed. The boating accident case was closing in. His reputation and freedom were at risk. Their theory? The murders were a desperate attempt to gain sympathy, distract from investigations, and reset the narrative. The defense, however, argued there was no direct evidence placing the weapons in Alex's hands. They suggested alternative suspects, including those connected to the boating accident seeking revenge. But the jury focused on the details. The video. The timeline. The inconsistencies. And perhaps most importantly, the motive. After weeks of testimony, the verdict came in. Guilty on all counts. Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For many, it felt like justice had finally been served. But not everyone is convinced the story is complete. Because even with a conviction, questions remain. Were Maggie and Paul specifically targeted? Or were they victims of something larger? Was Alex acting alone, or was there more to the story that hasn't been uncovered? And what about the broader system that allowed so much power to concentrate in one family for so long? The Murdaugh murders aren't just a case, they're a window into a world where influence can blur the lines between right and wrong. A world where secrets can stay buried for decades. Until they can't. Some believe the prosecution's case was airtight. Others argue that circumstantial evidence left room for doubt. And then there are the theories. One theory suggests that Alex's actions were purely self-serving, a calculated move to escape mounting pressure. Another proposes that external enemies, possibly tied to past cases or the boating incident, played a role. There's even speculation that the truth lies somewhere in between. That this wasn't a simple case of guilt or innocence, but a complex web of events that spiraled out of control. What makes this case so haunting isn't just what we know. It's what we might never know. Because when power, money, and family collide, the truth has a way of becoming complicated. And sometimes, the scariest part isn't the crime itself. It's realizing how long it went unnoticed. Before you go, ask yourself this: if not for those two tragic deaths, would any of these secrets have ever come to light? Or would the Murdaugh name still carry the same untouchable weight it once did? If you found this story as gripping as it is unsettling, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Shadow Files. We dive deep into the cases that leave more questions than answers. Because the truth is out there. But it's not always easy to find.